Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel where we bring you the most incredible stories of innovation and ambition. Stories that teach you powerful lessons, expand your vocabulary, and help you learn English naturally. Today, I am going to tell you about a boy who was so shy and awkward that he could barely hold a conversation. A boy who preferred the quiet logic of computers to the noisy chaos of people. A boy who sat in his college dorm room, wearing a hoodie and flip-flops, typing code late into the night. He had no money, no business experience, and no grand plan to take over the world. He was just a kid with an idea. But that idea grew into something the world had never seen before. It connected friends and families across oceans. It changed how we share our lives, our photos, and our thoughts. It built a digital community of billions of people. That idea was called Facebook. And the boy who built it is Mark Zuckerberg. How did a quiet, introverted computer programmer from a small town become one of the youngest billionaires in history? How did he build an empire from his dorm room? And how did he face the storms of controversy, betrayal, and immense pressure? This is a story about technology, about ambition, and about a simple human desire to connect. It is a story filled with tech vocabulary, startup lessons, and the deep truth that sometimes the biggest revolutions start with the smallest steps. And as always, this story is a powerful way to improve your English. You will learn words like algorithm, platform, startup, venture capital, user interface, and mission-driven company. So, get comfortable and let's begin from the very start. Mark Elliott Zuckerberg was born on May 14, 1984, in White Plains, New York, and grew up in the comfortable suburb of Dobbs Ferry. His father, Edward, was a dentist who had a love for technology. His mother, Karen, was a psychiatrist. Mark was a middle child with three sisters, Randy, Donna, and Ariel. From a very young age, Mark showed an extraordinary fascination with how things worked. He was quiet and serious, more comfortable observing the world than participating in its noisy games. His father noticed his son's unusual intelligence. When Mark was about 10 years old, Edward bought a book on programming and started teaching him the Atari basic programming language. But the student quickly outpaced the teacher. Within days, the boy had absorbed the concepts and was writing his own simple programs. Edward then hired a private computer tutor to come to the house. The tutor was shocked by Mark's ability. He said it was like teaching a college student, not a child. The boy was a natural-born coder. One of Mark's earliest creations was a response to his father's busy dental practice. The house and the office were connected, but the receptionist would have to shout when a patient arrived. Mark built a small messaging network. He called it ZuckNet. It allowed the computers in the house and the office to send text messages to each other. It was a primitive version of an instant messenger, built by a 12-year-old kid years before the modern internet took shape. He also created video games, simple but creative, often drawing his friends' artwork into the characters. For high school, Mark was sent to Phillips Exeter Academy, a prestigious boarding school in New Hampshire. It was a world of ivy-covered walls, rigorous academics, and future leaders. Mark was a star student. He won prizes in mathematics, astronomy, and classical studies. But his real passion was still technology. He continued to program in his free time, building tools to make his life and his classmates' lives easier. He built a program called Synapse Media Player. It was a music player that used artificial intelligence to learn a user's listening habits and predict what song they might want to hear next. It was brilliant and ahead of its time. Mark put it online for free. The response was astonishing. Tech giants like Microsoft and AOL noticed the sophisticated software built by a teenager. They tried to recruit him. Microsoft offered him a job with a salary that would make any adult jealous. But Mark politely declined. He had bigger dreams, and they involved going to college. He had set his sights on Harvard University. In the fall of 2002, Mark Zuckerberg arrived at Harvard as a freshman. He joined a Jewish fraternity, but he was never the life of the party. He was the quiet guy in the corner, wearing his signature hoodie and Adidas sandals, even in the winter. He studied psychology and computer science, a combination that would prove to be incredibly powerful. He was fascinated not just by how code worked, but by how people thought and behaved. At Harvard, Mark quickly earned a reputation as a brilliant and somewhat reckless programmer. He was a hacker, not in the criminal sense, but in the original meaning of the word, someone who loved to take things apart, understand them, and build them back better and faster. He built a program called Course Match that helped students choose their classes based on what their friends were taking. It was an instant hit. Then came a cold November night in 2003. Mark was in his dorm room, a little upset about something, possibly a girl. And in a fit of mischievous, late-night genius, he decided to do something wild. He hacked together a website in just a few hours. The site was called Facemash. It displayed 2 photos of Harvard students side by side and asked users to rate who was more attractive. To get the photos, Mark broke into various Harvard House databases, scraping the images without permission. Facemash went live at around 11 p.m. Within hours, the site was so popular that it crashed Harvard's internet network. Students were obsessed. But the administration was furious. Mark was hauled in front of the university's disciplinary board. There were accusations of violating copyright, breaching security, and invading privacy. The newspapers called him a menace. He was almost expelled. In the end, the charges were dropped, but he was put on probation. To his classmates, though, he became a legend. He had shown what one person with a computer could do. The Facemash incident caught the attention of 3 Harvard seniors, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, twin brothers who were Olympic rowers, and their friend Divya Narendra. They had an idea for a social network for Harvard students. They called it Harvard Connection. They wanted it to be exclusive and classy. And they were looking for a programmer to build it. They met with Mark, impressed by his Facemash stunt, and asked him to join their team. Mark agreed. He worked on their project for a while, but he was not passionate about it. The Winklevoss twins' idea was complicated and slow. Mark had a much simpler, more powerful vision bubbling in his brain. He saw a clean, elegant social network where you could create a profile, add your friends, and share a little bit about yourself. It would be built on real identities, using Harvard's email system. No fake profiles. No games. Just real people connecting. In January 2004, Mark started working on his own project, a site he called the Facebook. He enlisted the help of his friends. Eduardo Saverin, a fellow student and a sharp business mind, agreed to put up some seed money, about $1,000, to help pay for servers. Dustin Moskovitz, a brilliant programmer who was Mark's roommate, joined to help code. Chris Hughes, another roommate, became the communications guy, the one who could explain the platform to the world. On February 4, 2004, from a tiny dorm room in Kirkland House, Mark Zuckerberg launched the Facebook.com. It was a simple, blue and white website. Only Harvard students with a valid email address could join. And they did. Within 24 hours, over 1,000 students had signed up. The platform was addictive. You could see who was in your classes, who was single, who your friends were friends with. It created a digital social graph of the entire university. Mark was stunned. He later said, "I remember thinking this could be big, but I didn't think we were the ones who would build it." There were bigger companies with more resources. But the growth was unstoppable. Within a month, they expanded to Stanford, Columbia, and Yale. The servers were melting under the traffic. Eduardo put in more money to keep them afloat. But a problem was brewing. The Winklevoss twins and Narendra found out about the Facebook. They were outraged. They accused Mark of stealing their idea and delaying their project while he built his own. They filed a lawsuit that would drag on for years. The dispute was bitter and painful. It would later be immortalized in the film The Social Network. In the end, the case was settled, with the twins receiving a large sum of money and shares in the company. The settlement's terms were confidential for a long time. But Mark never admitted to stealing code. He just had a different vision. That summer, Mark and Dustin made a decision that changed everything. Instead of returning home, they moved to a rented house in Palo Alto, California. It was a messy, chaotic house with a swimming pool. They lived on the cheap, eating pizza and coding all night. This was the heart of Silicon Valley, the center of the tech universe. Mark was only 20 years old. He had no intention of returning to Harvard. He dropped out. The Facebook was his life. In Palo Alto, a charismatic, fast-talking young man named Sean Parker bumped into Mark. Sean had co-founded Napster, the music-sharing service that had disrupted the entire recording industry. He was a celebrity in the tech world. He saw the Facebook and instantly recognized its potential. He saw that this was not just a college toy, it was a global platform. Sean introduced Mark to the world of venture capital, to the big investors on Sand Hill Road. Sean also gave Mark a crucial piece of advice. He said, "Drop the. Just call it Facebook. So they did. And Sean helped them secure their first major investment from Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal. Thiel put in $500,000. Facebook now had the fuel to grow explosively. But the rapid growth came with a terrible cost. The relationship between Mark and his co-founder Eduardo Saverin broke down. Eduardo, who was in New York doing business development, felt pushed aside. Mark, influenced by Sean Parker, restructured the company and diluted Eduardo's shares. It was a brutal, heartbreaking betrayal of a friendship. Eduardo was out, and his name was removed from the company's masthead. He later sued and eventually settled for a large stake, restoring his co-founder title. The experience left a permanent scar on Mark. He learned a hard lesson about business, loyalty, and the ruthlessness of building a hyper-growth company. He said later, "I built something that I thought was great, and I hurt a lot of people along the way. That's something I have to live with." By 2006, Facebook was open to everyone, not just college students. Anyone with an email address could join. The user base exploded into the tens of millions. Facebook became a cultural phenomenon. Your mom joined. Your boss joined. It connected the world. And Mark, still in his early 20s, became a billionaire. But the pressure was immense. Yahoo offered to buy Facebook for $1 billion. It was an astronomical sum. Everyone around Mark told him to sell. Peter Thiel, the board members, even some of his employees. They said he was crazy to turn it down. Mark thought about it for a long, painful week. He knew he would lose employees who wanted the payout. But in his heart, he did not build Facebook to sell it for $1 billion. He built it to see how far the idea could go. He walked into the boardroom and said no. It was the most consequential decision of his career. The Yahoo deal fell apart, and the press called him arrogant and foolish. But Mark was betting on his vision. He continued to innovate. He introduced the news feed, a constantly updating stream of your friends' activities. It was a revolution, and at first, users hated it. They protested, and groups were formed demanding its removal. But Mark understood something deeper about human nature. He knew that once people got used to the stream of information, they would never want to go back. He was right. The news feed became the beating heart of Facebook. In 2012, Facebook went public, offering shares on the stock market in one of the largest IPOs in history. Mark Zuckerberg, at just 28, was now worth tens of billions of dollars. He took his entire team on a hike in the hills. Standing on a windy ridge, he announced that he was setting a new company value: move fast and break things. It was a philosophy of rapid innovation. Do not be afraid to make mistakes, just fix them quickly. But this philosophy would later come to haunt him. The next decade was a masterclass in expansion. Mark made two stunningly bold acquisitions. In 2012, he bought Instagram, a tiny photo-sharing app with 13 employees, for $1 billion. Everyone said he had overpaid for a company with no revenue. But Mark saw the future of mobile photography and social status. Today, Instagram is a giant. Then, in 2014, he bought WhatsApp, a messaging service, for an incredible $19 billion. He was securing Facebook's dominance in global communication. He also pushed into virtual reality with the purchase of Oculus VR, believing it was the next major computing platform. He was not just running a social network. He was building an empire that connected people through photos, messages, and shared virtual experiences. But as Facebook grew to connect nearly 3 billion people, the dark side of the platform began to emerge. The move-fast culture had created a system so massive that it was easily exploited. During the 2016 U.S. presidential election, foreign actors used fake accounts and misleading pages to sow division among voters. The term fake news entered the global vocabulary. And then, in 2018, the Cambridge Analytica scandal exploded. It was revealed that a political consulting firm had harvested the personal data of over 87 million Facebook users without their consent. They used it to build psychological profiles and target voters with political propaganda. The public was outraged. The stock price crashed. Governments around the world opened investigations. The chorus of voices grew: break up Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg must resign. Mark was devastated. He had built the company to connect people, but it had been weaponized to divide them. He had to appear before the United States Congress. Sitting in a chair, facing rows of angry senators, the young founder, still in a suit and a tie, had to answer for the failures of his creation. He apologized. Over and over again. He said, "I'm sorry. I started Facebook, I run it, and I'm responsible for what happens here." It was a turning point. The era of move fast and break things was over. The new motto became move fast with stable infrastructure. Mark invested billions of dollars into safety and security. He hired tens of thousands of content moderators. He shifted the company's focus toward encrypted, private communication. He knew that the trust of the world had been broken, and it would take years to earn it back. Through all the storms, his personal life has been a pillar of stability. The boy who once found it hard to connect with people found his soulmate. At a college party back at Harvard, waiting in line for the bathroom, Mark met a young woman named Priscilla Chan. They talked for the entire night. She was brilliant, studying biology and medicine. She was kind, grounded, and never dazzled by his genius. They dated for years, through the chaos of Facebook's rise. In 2012, the day after the Facebook IPO, they got married in a surprise ceremony in their backyard in Palo Alto. They have 3 daughters. Priscilla has been his anchor. She is a pediatrician. And together, they have committed to giving away the vast majority of their fortune. They created the Zuckerberg Initiative, a philanthropic organization. Their mission statement is bold and audacious: to help cure, prevent, or manage all diseases by the end of the century. They're investing in science, education, and housing, trying to use their wealth to create a better world for their children's generation. Today, Mark Zuckerberg is in his late 30s. The hoodie has been replaced, at least in public, with more polished clothing. But he is still the same passionate, introverted engineer. He is obsessed with the metaverse, a vision of a fully immersive digital world, and he has renamed the entire company Meta to signal this shift. He is betting billions on this dream, even as critics say it is a mistake. But Mark has been doubted his entire life. He trusts his vision. Now, what can we learn from the journey of Mark Zuckerberg? First, great things start small and simple. The Facebook began as a simple directory for one school. It solved a basic human need: to see and be seen. You do not need a giant, complex plan. Start with a simple problem. Learn a few English words every day. Build a small website. Solve a tiny issue. Simplicity can scale into something massive. Second, believe in your vision when others don't. Mark turned down $1 billion. He was told he was crazy. He lost friends over it. But he saw a long-term potential that others could not. In your life, you will face pressure to settle, to take the safe path. If you truly believe in the value of what you are building, whether it's your English skills or a business idea, have the courage to say no. Third, move fast, but take responsibility. The old Facebook motto taught the value of speed. But the company learned that you cannot break things without also cleaning up the mess. Speed is an advantage, but it must be paired with responsibility. Learn quickly, speak English even if it is broken, but take the time to correct your mistakes and understand why they happened. Fourth, your connections are your greatest asset. Facebook's power is its network. Mark's success came from his connections: Dustin, Eduardo, Sean, Priscilla. He built a team. Learning English is also about building connections. It is a tool to connect with billions of people. Do not isolate yourself. Find a study partner, join a conversation club, use the language to build bridges. Fifth, embrace failure and learn from it. Facemash got Mark into serious trouble. He was sued by the Winklevoss twins. He hurt his friend Eduardo. The Cambridge Analytica scandal humbled him on a global stage. These were painful, public failures. But each time, he learned, adapted, and kept moving. Your mistakes are your tuition fees for success. Do not let them stop you. And finally, use your success for good. Mark and Priscilla have pledged 99% of their Facebook shares to philanthropy. They are trying to cure diseases. When you achieve your goals, whether big or small, remember to give back. Help others learn. Share your knowledge. The true measure of success is the impact you have on the lives of others. Mark Zuckerberg once said, "The biggest risk is not taking any risk." In a world that's changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking risks. He also said, "People don't care about what you say. They care about what you build." You are building your English skills right now. It is a project that, like the early Facebook, might seem small and uncertain. but you're taking a risk. You're investing your time and energy. And one day, you will look back at the empire of opportunity you have built for yourself, and you will be proud. So keep coding your life. Keep connecting with the world. And remember that the quiet, shy kid in the dorm room can change everything. Thank you for listening to this story. If it inspired you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with a friend who dreams of building something big. And let me know in the comments, if you could build a social network for one thing, what would it be? I read every comment. Until next time, keep moving fast, keep building your dreams, and never break the good things in your heart. Bye for now.